Chapter 25. Devastation Behind Enemy Eyes. Countdown to Unification. The ominous sight of a planet on fire is the most dreaded vision anyone could behold. The once purplish-olive drab atmosphere was now black, caked with yellowish-orange embers. The mass of ships that surrounded the once beautiful world littered the surrounding space. Among the armada lay a debris field of wreckage that once represented the remains of the immediate Altarian fleet. Now, nothing stood in the way of the blanket of evil which hovered over the devastated planet as they contemplated their next objective. The largest of the vessels, centered among the mass of specks that surrounded it, awaited its turn to move. Its slick, rounded green form gave shape as if an enormous sick whale had taken its place among the stars. The few dim lights along the exterior gave little to show the detail of what was once a mighty dreadnought in a time long forgotten. Numerous was the weaponry of the ancient vessel, but few could tell just by looking at it where they were, even when they were active. 3 enormous round tubes ran the length of its belly toward the bow. Their insides still glowed from the usage of the atmospheric incinerations that debilitated the planet earlier. No other weapon in the universe could match the power and ferocity of what this ultimate weapon could do, for what was worse than destroying a planet, if not to negate its ability to sustain life. Deep within the heart of the ship, a lone figure sat in the middle of a dim-lit chamber, waiting to report to those who had allowed him to carry out this vengeful deed. Once, many years before, he might have been disgusted and appalled by the acts his fleet had carried out. Now it was their calling. Too long had they waited for justice to be served in their favour, for it was the one thing that kept them alive, as was their duty to serve out the orders of the Dark Ones. His name was Grun, leader of the Raelian fleet. Long ago, it was a name that was both respected and feared by those who knew it. His people, along with all the other races they had encountered throughout their illustrious history, knew that he was not one to be trifled with. But that was eons ago, and the name had little meaning to anyone now. Even the crews of the hundreds of ships at his disposal could not remember what the fear of their true leader was like. Now, it was as if his was just a title among the many that now served the ones who lived in shadow. Grun looked down at his debilitated right arm. At one time it had been the pinnacle of strength to his body, which stood firm, formed, and ready to strike at a moment's notice. But now the flesh was nearly gone. The strewn muscle and tendons now showed, giving his vision the unpleasant reminder of who he was, of what he had become. For death does not come to the armies of the dark. Victory and obliteration were the only options they had to fall upon. Yet there was little that had ever stood between them and victory, save for the one race who had brought them to their knees before. The memories of all their battles were too countless to recall. The pathetic human race had become a thorn in the side of the Raelians for as long as anyone could remember. Their hungered souls were not easily satisfied by this meagre skirmish, leaving the undead reptilians wanting more. Grun could just as easily have brought the wrath of Raelia upon all of the outlying human colonies. But the right to choose their targets was no longer his. The Raelians lived only to serve their masters. The call to war meant another chance at vengeance, but it was not up to him to make that decision anymore. Now, with a severe blow dealt to their ancient rivals, Grun awaited his new orders toward their next objective. A light began to flicker among the haziness before him. The large reptilian creature stared at it through his one good eye as he awaited the presence of the one he called Master. It was not his true master. She was not participating in the game this time, which did not sit very well with him. It was not like her to miss an opportunity to take away what the light held so dear. Grun was concerned, but that was not a sentiment he would share with his new lord. Even the shrewdest form of concern would bring about a painful misery that only few have felt, and yet all have been warned. The light shimmered into the form of a hooded shadow. Its body wavered within the image it projected, for this demon was not foolish enough to grace these beasts with the true form of his identity. The red, flaming eyes glared at Grun, as if to make a shameful example of what it is like to be under the rule of an omnipotent being. But Grun did not flinch, nor did he bow or salute the form with respect. There was not any, just the acknowledgement of what the demon represented: power and strength. "You have done well in your quest for revenge," hissed Darkness. Grun eyed the demon, not giving in to his apparent praise of the situation. "Most of the humanoids had fled the planet before we arrived. Somehow they knew we were coming," replied Grun, disappointed in the fact that he could not take a formal victory among the small band of ships that stood against his armada. He could not even take in the satisfaction of eliminating their leader, making any future conflicts that awaited them much more mundane. But Grun knew better. Humans had an irritating knack of finding ways to overcome even the most insurmountable of odds, which was part of the reason why they were such a hated foe. The eyes of the demon flickered, but did not show any concern for the comment. "It matters not," he replied. "You have shown your strength to those who may yet stand in our way. The final decisive battle will take place on Earth, a place you are eager to collect a debt from, yes?" Grun flexed his cheeks. The thin layer of skin that still remained moved about with the ruffling of muscle. "I've waited a long time for this," he replied. "It would be an even sweeter victory than the comet rows we used against the Silinars." "You are to head there at once," ordered Darkness. "Don't fail me, Commander Grun, for you know what awaits you if you do." Grun huffed as an uneasy gurgle escaped him at the mere thought of losing a battle he was destined to fight. "There is no failure," he replied. "Only death." The fiery eyes glared at him one last time. "Death is too kind of a punishment for failure," warned Darkness as his image faded. Grun was alone once again. He did not like the demon spawn that had come to play the game, but he had no choice in the matter. He had to obey. Pressing a button on the console, an image of a Raelian subordinate appeared before him. Half of the skin from his head was missing, as only the dull white skull was visible from his appearance. The empty eye sockets of what once was a magnificent creature stared back at Grun, waiting for orders.
"Send the advanced fleet of ships ahead," commanded Grun. "The rest of the armada will follow one day behind. Destination: Earth."
The skeletal form nodded, complying with the order. The image disappeared, leaving Grun to his thoughts. The Earth. It was such an ironic place to come full circle. Now he could reclaim what should have belonged to his race eons ago. He turned to the large table behind him and planned his next move. The Earth turned in its orbit, only noticeable to anyone who even bothered to look at it. There were the occasional streaks of debris which skirted across its atmosphere, leaving those who were watching upon its surface to believe that a star had fallen. Just above the atmosphere, hundreds of small objects sat in orbit, receiving and transmitting their daily messages around the face of the globe. Yet, despite the formidable technology that embraced the world, they remained unaware of what was about to transpire. A solid ball sitting out in the middle of space was about to be reborn. Every so often, an image in the far distance would strobe in and out of sight, followed by another, and another. There were 5 others just like the one in the centre, following the path to their final objective. The worlds were set to become one in the end, an event unlike any known to modern-day mortals. Some had life, some were barren, some were just templates of what was to be and never carried out. Yet they were there, moving toward a final point in time and space. Many times this event had happened in the past, and many times it had completed without much awareness to the ones who dwelled upon its surface. But this time was different. This time, things were noticeable. Other people and other places faded in and out of sight to the same strobing effect that others were experiencing. Some thought it would be the end of the world, as if the spirits of the past had risen to walk among them once more. Some thought to believe that they were being invaded from another world. The aliens and UFOs that countless people had claimed to witness and perceive as the catastrophic calamity that was coming for them. Still, with everything that was happening around the world, 2 family members sat and watched in solemnness for the missing part of their lives, hoping for the best and fearing the worst. High above it all, the solemn angel waited, keeping constant watch over everything within her sight. The plans she had set out were beginning to unfold themselves, but not in the way she had intended. Many things were yet to be determined, and many things had yet to reveal themselves. It was all she could do to keep up with her adversary. Alone, waiting in anticipation for the enemy to make his next move, Brianna's emotions began to edge upon the rim of her soul, overflowing into the depths of hidden fears which she burdened inside. Far had she come in her life of servitude, but one last obstacle stood before her and her ultimate destiny. Her greatest lesson was about to be realized, yet through the emotional veil, she just could not see it. And without word or warning, despite all that has happened to her so far, Brianna rose from her chair of observation and walked away.